go?
I'm good to go.
All right, sweet. Hey, everybody. Greg here with another episode of the Aviation Growth Podcast. Here with me today, I have Scott Ashton with Aerox. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We met, I guess, a little less than a year ago. You had reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'm new to the area. Let's meet up," and met up for lunch. You had just made the move down here, and so tell me a little bit about how Aerox came. Well, first, give us an intro. What do you guys do? What products do you sell? And what do you do?
Sure. So Aerox is oxygen made easy.
Okay.
And we do portable systems for general aviation pilots.
Okay.
We've got a line of TSO'd oxygen masks, diluter demand masks that go to 40,000 feet, continuous flow demand masks, PMA oxygen cylinders, and we do installed oxygen systems for all sorts of aircraft, Diamond, Globe, and others.
Okay, cool. And so you just got into this business, I guess. Is it less than a year ago?
That's about 18 months ago.
About
now,
18 months ago.
And the time
okay.
has traveled so fast.
How has it been?
It's been very hectic.
Okay.
A lot of 18, 20-hour days, as you would expect with any small business, especially in the middle of COVID. But it has been fantastic.
Yeah.
It's been just fun. The people that I work with are fantastic. The customers are great, and business is going pretty well.
Awesome. Well, and so tell us a little bit about how you got into this, because you actually came down and bought a business, or it was a split out of.
So the business was owned by a much bigger company. They had bought the business several years ago, five or 6 years ago. And as part of a series of transactions, this was kind of the last thing that needed to be sold, because it really wasn't core to what they were doing.
Okay.
And so they were selling the business, and they were using a great investment banker who happened to be also a friend of mine.
Okay.
And so if I take you back to March, April 2020, the world was kind of going to hell in a hurry, right? The
Sure.
stock market was going down. It was down, I think, to below 18,000. Travel restrictions, and nobody knew which way was up and what was going to happen, 2 days from now, never mind 2 years from now. And so the business was available, and to his credit, the banker who was selling it, who's Bill Alderman from Alderman and Company, a fantastic person and a fantastic banker, he saw that this was the right opportunity for me. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got this little company down in Florida." And at the time, I also had a condo down here in Naples.
Okay.
And so I love being down here anyway. And called my wife and said, "Hey, we're going to go for this." And, literally in the middle of everything going on, I packed my car up with whatever I could fit into it. And I drove down to the condo, and, I felt like I was crossing the border into, I don't know what, because they had police blockades set up on 95. And, but I got to the house, I set everything up. We started doing our due diligence, and, 60 days later, I'm having the first team meeting with my new team. And so it's been a surreal
whirlwind,
experience.
would you say?
Yeah. And, it's our first experience owning a business.
Right.
I've run a couple of businesses, but always for other people. So this was the first time, running our own business. And, to her credit, my wife, Sarah, has just been fantastic. She's a CPA, so she took over as CFO. So in the middle of that, she's in Connecticut. We've got 3 kids. And now I just threw that on her and said, "Hey, I'm going to Florida, and we're moving down here." So she had to get the house ready for sale. My daughter graduated from high school. She's learning our new accounting system and trying to migrate to a new ERP system, kind of somewhat remotely, going back and forth. And she was a real trooper. She bought in, and
I think it's really important when you're starting up a new business or taking over a business to really have that right-hand man or woman in this case to really help out and get that done. So it sounds like Sarah was the person for that.
Yeah. And, you know, again, to her credit, you know, I was heads down in the business. I was focused on one thing, and that was it. And, you know, she's managing the house up in Connecticut. My daughter's graduating from high school, so everything going along with that. She had one of her best years ever selling real estate. So she's doing real estate transactions and everything going on with the business at the same time. So she was really all over the place.
Sure.
So I couldn't have done it without her.
Yeah. And so going back, you know, you've been in aviation for quite some time now. What have you done in aviation? What were the businesses that you were involved in, and how did that lead up to ultimately coming in and now buying this business in aviation?
Yeah, it's interesting how everything that I've done in my personal and professional career kind of brought me to this point. I really have no skills outside of aviation. I've been flying since I was 17, went to school for aeronautical engineering. I've got a multi-engine ATP, flight instructor, FAA fast team rep. So really flying in aviation is really the only industry that I know. Inside the business, I've done engineering, but really the bias of my career has been front end focused. So sales and marketing. I was chief commercial officer for GE's corporate aircraft finance business, chief commercial officer for Gama Aviation, which was a management company that got bought by Wheels Up. And then I became the president of Associated Aircraft Group, which was a division of Sikorsky and a Flight Docs customer.
Sure.
And so that was really my first taste of general management. And then I got asked to go run a small family-owned MRO, and then this opportunity came along, and I jumped at it. So you know, for many years, I always felt like I was chasing something, like I was never really satisfied, like there was another calling, and you know, owning my own company is just that was it.
How do you think your mindset has changed from now? You've essentially ran a lot of organizations, but you haven't owned them necessarily. And now you take this kind of leap of faith, you know, pack up the car, head to Florida, do what I understand to be a pretty quick due diligence, and now you take over this company. What's changed for you during that time?
What changed was I have no net. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's really, you know, when you run a small division within a big company, you've always got a net.
Sure.
Even when it was somebody else's money, you know, you're still working for somebody else. And now, you know, this is the first time where this is us, and there's no backup plan. This has to work, and you know, we're making it work. So the satisfaction I think that you get is much higher, you know, and so is the risk. But when you go home at night and you've put everything into it, you know, it's all you, and that's pretty satisfying. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. So what made you interested in this business in particular?
It was a combination of things. It was the market. So you know, my background is business and general aviation, so it was the right market, it was the right location.
Sure.
The timing for me was perfect. It gave me a competitive advantage over the other companies that were looking at it that were a lot bigger, where I could go in and get the deal done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you know, money was cheap, so it was easy to finance, relatively easy to finance.
Sure.
And you know, so those were really the kind of the competitive advantages. And then the company itself had intellectual property, which is something that we were very interested in. I didn't want to just get a company that would, you know, was a commodity type product. And we've got PMA, we've got TSO, we've got installed installations with OEMs. So there's and I've got a 145 repair station. So, you know, I've got a lot of competitive barriers to entry in our market. And you know, our competitors are some of the biggest aerospace companies in the world, and there's nothing like better than going head to head with them. And sometimes you win, and sometimes you get your butt kicked. But you know, that you manage that risk as best you can, and that's I love winning. So that's what's fun is when you've got a small company and you can go in and do something pretty quickly that your customers know they can't get anywhere else.
Sure.
And that's a result of my team.
Awesome. And so tell me a little bit about like that team and how that process has over the last 18 months. So you show up, you buy the business, you have a team that's in place. How does that's obviously for anybody who's taken over a team, it's a big obstacle, right?
It can be.
Okay. How has that gone for you?
It's gone like you would expect with any small business where somebody comes in. So some of the team was outstanding and probably not given enough opportunity to shine,
right.
And we've taken care of that. Other members of the team mostly self-selected out if they didn't really see where the business was headed.
Sure.
And in every case we've replaced them with talent that is really, we call it Aerox 4.0 because I'm the fourth owner of the company.
Okay.
So we've got this kind of cultural ethos and vision called Aerox 4.0.
Okay.
And if you're not bought into 4.0, you're not going to be part of 4.0.
Sure.
And, we explain that to people who come in, and they love it. They love that vision. They love the energy. They love being part of a company that's kind of hyper competitive and fun and loves to win. And so even Saturday we did inventory and tried to make it as fun as we could, as painful as it was. But that's a big part of it, is that I want to have fun. I want to enjoy this. I don't want this to be a grind. We're in this to certainly to provide a living for us, but also I take our employees' welfare very, very seriously, and that's a big responsibility that we've got, that Sarah and I have, that we provide for the livelihood of a lot of people and their families, and we take that very, very, very seriously.
Yeah, for sure, and you have to.
Yeah, you have to.
It's a huge part of it, and as you're looking to grow any business, there's only so much that you can do on your own, right? And so having that team behind you is critical.
Yeah, and I think as you grow, what you can do actually becomes less and less and less, right?
Sure.
Because you're not really scalable, but your team is.
Sure.
And so that's been one of the big things, was when I came in, you look and like everything's got to change, and it's all you, right? We had changed our e-commerce platform, our payroll system, all of our banking. We relocated the company. So every system, we changed our MRP system. So everything that a company could do that was kind of like a big project, we did them all at once.
Yeah.
And it was just Sarah and I and a couple of other people. So it's been a huge undertaking. That largely is behind us now. And so now I'm trying to step back from the business a little bit and let the team run with their respective organizations, and we're trying to reorganize the business a little bit. So everybody, because when I first got there, everybody reported to me, and that
has its
for a time that was okay, because I was trying to get a sense of the organization and kind of who was doing what. But now it's time to start scaling, and we've started moving those pieces around the board and starting to set ourselves up for growth, and it's been great. It's been, I think so far it's been pretty successful, and there's more of it. So and a big part of that, and we'll talk more about EOS, but we're in the process of implementing the entrepreneurial operating system.
Okay.
And a big part of that is that stepping back, having clearly defined roles and responsibilities, which we are just starting to do, a solid scorecard, and coming in as the owner of a new business. When we were part of a bigger enterprise, you always have somebody else's operating system to lean on, right? So they give you the template that you're going to fill out.
Right.
You're on somebody else's agenda, and so coming in, we really didn't have that because we had unplugged from the parent company. So we had a clean sheet of paper, and so that's what we're going to go with, is EOS, which is great for accountability and scorecards, and really providing us a platform where we can scale up the business.
Cool. And how does that talk to me about this 4.0 type of, like, I guess that's the culture that you're really trying to build. do you have kind of like pillars or main points of that
we're still building all of that. But 4.0 is really just a high performing organization, right? Where you're not hiding behind a much bigger organization and their performance metrics that, one of the things, I'll just give you a small example, was on-time delivery. So in the past Aerox 3.0, they were measured on-time delivery, and their metrics were tied to it, which means bonuses. And when I got there, we were measuring on-time delivery, and I knew we were late with stuff. We were like 95% on-time delivery.
Yeah.
Well, because we would just keep pushing the due date out as stuff happened. And I'm like, okay, but the only thing so we were measured on-time delivery, which was great, but what really mattered was what did the customer feel like?
Right.
And and so the customer was being impacted, but we were claiming success. So we stopped all of that stuff. And then really it's just the talent and the type of behaviors that we want. Shared success, no hidden agendas, and really customer focused and customer driven.
Right.
And some of that is, driving avatars. Right? I don't know if you're familiar with what an avatar is, but it's it's a profile of who your customer is. So we've got an avatar of a customer who's a pilot with a general aviation airplane. He's got an installed system, and what are his needs and wants. And then we've got an avatar of an OEM who's really a buyer who's being beaten on-time delivery of his supply chain or her supply chain. So we've got these avatars, and we're trying to, I guess, personalize our customers so people understand, hey, when we don't do things right, real people like any of us are impacted. Yeah. And I think, in a lot of ways, Amazon has driven that discussion, because we think, okay, this is what people expect now, right? That I'm going to put an online order in, or I'm going to go to my, one of our distributors, and I'm going to place an order, and it's just going to show up. And when it doesn't, there's a problem. Yeah. And so you can have whatever internal metrics you want, but you're really measured by the marketplace. Right. And so we've made a lot of changes, built up a lot of our internal inventory, just changed our philosophy about how we organize our operations.
Yeah. I think as I look at a lot of the larger companies out there, and as they continue to scale up, management oftentimes gets further and further away from the customer. And that's where I think a lot of these like KPIs come into place, where they're not really they're measuring things that don't give you an accurate look at how you're actually performing. And you start having team members that are striving for goals that really benefit them, but don't really benefit the customer, and ultimately don't benefit the organization in the long run. Right. And so that's where you see, I think, a lot of the smaller companies have this hyper, customer focus, and they're really focused on things that matter, and things that don't matter, don't impact the end, your end customer. They're great to measure, and sometimes you go back and you say, I wish we had this metric, or I wish we had done this, to use as a data point, but they ultimately don't really impact when you're a smaller organization, they don't impact you as much as Right. And so you really just lock in on the things that really impact you, like customer satisfaction, speed, level of service, all that good stuff.
Well, and I remind our people that a lot of our customers are my friends.
Right.
Right. Or people kind of in my circle, right. Yeah. As a general aviation pilot, or, someone in the industry, I know these people. Right. I know the distributors, and, I know, the people who may be buying our products. Every once in a while I see somebody. So it's important to get it right. Yeah. It's because it's very personal.
Sure.
And
you're going to hear about it.
And I do. I put myself out there, and I make myself available. I get, I'm on some of our shared inboxes. So when somebody writes in and they're not happy, I pick up the phone, I call them, because I'm a peer. I'm part of this network. So
yeah, I was always the same way. And I get when customers were pissed about something, I'd every once in a while get CC'd on an incoming email and have to, jump right into it, pick up the phone, get it resolved. But it was one of those things where, I've been out there, I've been selling these products, I've been working with these customers for a long time. And just personally, I don't want, if we're gonna do a job, we're gonna do it right, because I don't want that reflected on myself. And I'm sure you
it's the same way. And sometimes, sometimes you're gonna miss. Yeah. And it's right now supply chain is a huge problem for us, huge problem. And so it's unavoidable that you're gonna disappoint people, but when you can pick up the phone and call them and at least let them know you care, you're doing everything you can, that, their order is just not one of 50 that are sitting in a bin somewhere.
Right.
It takes the sting away. And especially when you can explain to them what's going on.
What's really happening.
And we do that with our suppliers too. I have those same discussions with our vendors too. So that I know that they care and they're doing what they can to help us, because you've been in sales. It's hard to build a backlog.
Sure.
So when you build a backlog and you can't fulfill it, that hurts.
Yeah,
it really hurts
for sure. And I know that in general, it seems like over the last year, COVID has been, obviously it's impacted business seriously. I think there's also some companies that have kind of used it as a crutch, where it's like, oh, well, we don't pick up the phone anymore because of COVID. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense. And I think people are starting to see like it's not a valid excuse anymore. Yeah. But you're still running into, supply chain is still a very real
our
issue.
Supply chain is a major issue. And actually, I actually went so far as I called the head of the factory. We get some of our parts. And he, to his credit, we had a 25-minute discussion, and he's like, so demand is way up for the products that we're buying from them, and they had 2 plant shutdowns because of COVID. Just went right through their shop.
Yeah,
and he's like, we're trying to catch up, and I can't hire people, and so the supply chain difficulties that we're experiencing are pretty real.
Yeah, for
sure. And so, we just brought on a great new purchasing person. She was actually our customer service person who had a purchasing background. So we gave her some procurement responsibilities or our supply chain responsibilities. And so she's doing great, trying to bulk up our inventory, especially anything that's, with supplying oxygen, you're competing a little bit with the medical supply chain. Yeah. So we've done, large purchases to make sure we've got some insulation. Even things like oxygen, getting aviators breathing oxygen has been a little bit of a challenge, not from the production standpoint, but just drivers. They just don't have drivers to deliver the stuff.
Yeah.
So we've had to bulk up on that, which is, again, as a business owner, is cash. And
sure.
When you're owned by private equity or a bigger company and you've got to deliver your metrics, you've got to deliver so much cash and stuff. But if you don't, you still have a safety net, right? You're not going to not pay your bills. When it's just you, there is no net. You got to manage it. You have to manage it a little bit differently.
Right. And so, one of the things we had talked a couple weeks ago, and I've been talking to a lot of people, and there's a lot, and we did this too, and we brought on PE and for a minority investment, and then we went out and ultimately sold Flight Docs last year. And there's a lot of companies out there that are looking to raise capital, whether it's from a venture capital group or PE, or going out to their family members and or friends and trying to bring in dollars that way. And I think you really were pretty set on doing it yourself. And so can you take me through your rationale through that? And
so when we did this, there was a magic moment in the industry, I think, where that made this possible, right? And I'm not sure it would have been possible to do it in today's environment a year and a half later.
Sure.
So we really were very, very, very lucky in that regard. Also lucky that I got some very, very good advice from my network of trusted advisors. And really what made this possible was, I'm not particularly smart, but I surround myself with really, really just some awesome people. My attorney, Paul Lang, my financial advisors, Spurstone. I brought on a business coach who helped tremendously. My accounting people, and that network, they kind of they envelop you and protect you, and protect you from doing
stupid things.
Yeah. And so I was remember because we had done this transaction pretty successfully. I was told, you're pretty bankable. Go raise some money and go. Now you can scale this up.
Right.
And I had a discussion with a friend of mine who actually would have been a source of capital, I think, for moving forward on other acquisitions. And he said, I've run businesses with other people's money, and I've run businesses with my own money. And it's always more fun when it's just you.
Sure.
And I really took that to heart because, I don't always play well with others. And even just having somebody, whether it's family or just somebody else in the business, I think I think I would look at it differently. And so we decided not to take any outside money. We decided that we're not going to, go be a private equity firm. If something comes up and we can do it out of cash flow or do it out of our own reserves, we'll do it.
Right.
But I'm not going to partner with anybody and go raise money and go be somebody else's CEO.
Right.
Just because part of this is I'm in it to have fun. I really am, and I'm part. We're in it obviously to get a good rate of return, but between the employees and us, I want to be able to make those decisions based on what's best for us, not some
Somebody
third party who's really not invested in the business in the way that we are. So
sure.
So we're we pump the brakes on doing anything like that. And even, I've got no plans. I'm going to hang on to the business as absolutely as long as I can or as makes sense.
Sure.
But I will walk away. The day the check clears and we sign the paperwork, I'm throwing in the keys and walking away because I don't think I could watch somebody else kind of making decisions about my baby. So
sure.
So that's the decision behind all of that. And we've talked to a couple of people about doing some small, what I'll call kind of strategic bolt-on acquisitions, which I really would love to do.
Sure.
But it's got to be a way that's affordable and makes sense for us without taking any outside capital or giving up any control at all.
Yeah, sure. And so, it said, you surround yourself with this group of people that can really help you. And when we were talking, you had mentioned about, coaching and some of the stuff that you're looking to do in the future, some groups that you're looking to be a part of. I think that's really cool in that you have a lot of experience. You've ran companies, you're now running your own organization. And I think taking a look at it from it seems like you're of the mindset of you can always be learning new things and always taking advice from all different people. So tell me a little bit about what coaching has been like for you and some of the things that you're looking to do in the future.
Yeah. So when I first took over the company, I brought on an executive coach who's a great guy, Doug Brown, and I'd always wanted to do this kind of coaching because the people that I looked up to in the business had always talked very highly about professional coaching, business coaching. So now that we had this opportunity and now that I could make the decisions on my own without having to go to somebody else, which is a great luxury. I talked to Doug and he asked me, why now and what's different now. And, when it's, now the stakes are higher.
Yeah, sure.
At this point. So we made the investment and, a lot of what we talked about were around people issues and how to manage that transition. So it was very helpful. And one of the things, and we were going like, a million miles an hour, hair on fire, and he kept telling me, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down.
Sure.
And that was always in the back of my mind, slow down. And that was very helpful among other things that I won't talk about. But he was and is a great professional coach, and I highly recommend that for any executive.
Sure.
Just having somebody to, kick you in the ass a little bit, and a little bit of accountability, knowing that, when you say you're going to do something, as for me, if I say I'm going to do something, yeah, you're held accountable, but it's different. But when you have to go and have a discussion with somebody in 2 weeks and say, oh, did you really do that? Yeah. You're like, oh, well, no, I chickened out. I didn't have that discussion. Now, and you're writing a check for this advice, which is also a big deal.
Sure.
Now you're invested in it. And, you have a discussion about a difficult discussion you need to have with an employee or a supplier or a customer or whatever. And you go back and you don't have that discussion. You're like, okay, well, not only did I kind of not take the advice, I didn't have the benefit of actually having the discussion. And now I'm 2 weeks further behind. And so that was good, because it really did keep us on task. And it actually, as much as he said, slow down, which was absolutely true, it actually accelerated, I think, a lot of the progress that we made. And the other thing was that I come from Connecticut, so I've been there my whole life. My whole network was up there. Right. I ran, I was chairman of the board of the New England Air Museum for 10 years. So I had access to a lot of peers and executives that I could kind of talk to pretty informally. And then when I came down here, it was three things really going on at the same time. One is I didn't have that same kind of network built up. For obvious reasons, because I was relatively new down here. Second, it was really hard to do it because you're in the middle of COVID. So it's not like you can go to any of these groups or, business aviation associations or even the trade shows and talk to your peers. And then the third thing is that we were just so heads down in the business that I really didn't have time to do any of that. So, so the coaching and some of the other things that I've done have helped tremendously accelerate my transition to being a Southwest Florida business executive, which is, oh man, it's just a wonderful thing. I love it down here.
Yeah. So tell me about like what's so great about this area, because there's a lot of people that are making this change. I've been down here I moved from New York. I've been down here 12 years now. I'd never go back to New York. I like to go back and visit and see friends and stuff. So what do you like about down here?
I love the area. So the things that I like to do are primarily outside, right? Yep. So I love to sail. I love to fish. I love to fly, obviously. All of that you can do 12 months out of the year.
Yeah.
The idea of never being cold, of never shoveling snow is fantastic. The business environment couldn't be any better. I ran 2 businesses in New York, and the business environment there was not great.
Yeah.
And one on Long Island, one in Dutchess County. Dutchess County was actually good. They had a great economic development program there, but it was very expensive. And being a Connecticut resident working in New York was even worse. My commute is shorter. So it's just all the way around. It's just better. The only thing that we don't have in Southwest Florida is a great manufacturing ecosystem. Right? Manufacturing is really not emphasized. And, I'm part of the one of the aerospace groups here with the Lee County Economic Development Council. And, we're kind of going through the list of aerospace companies in this. I'm like, there's more aerospace companies in one street in Fort Lauderdale than there is in all the, Collier, Lee County combined.
Sure.
And so you don't have a great ecosystem here of other companies, but hopefully that'll change.
Yeah. Do you think that that's going to change? I mean, do you talk to people that think about making the move over here?
I think there are a lot of companies that are thinking about making the move, and I highly recommend it. You have Melbourne, right? So Melbourne, you had Aerion, but the thing, even with Aerion, closing up shop, was that now you've got a huge talent pool there.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Those people are they're not gonna want to leave.
No.
And so, you'll see all of these new companies, and I think you were already starting to see it.
Yeah.
You'll see all of these new companies crop up, but you've got Piper, you've got the entire Space Coast. You've obviously got Fort Lauderdale and Miami, which support a lot of the airlines and business aviation.
Yep.
So I think, Southwest Florida has an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it is around us. We just have to make a concerted effort to go get it. I love being on the West Coast, though. I really do.
It's definitely different than Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, all that. It's a different feel. I like it a lot better over here, but it's not for everybody. But it does seem like the amount of people that are making the move to this area, it's between the business environment in comparison to some of the places up north and other places in the country. It's obviously much more business friendly, which is why we came down originally. Yep. Cost of living, well, maybe in the last year has gone up a bit. I think it's still pretty good in comparison to some areas. And, with all the people coming down, I think that talent pool for companies that are based here is opening up a bit. And so one of the questions that I had for you was, as you came down by this business, you said some people left the business, bringing in some people. I think you're hiring now. How has the hiring process been for you here?
I would say it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Part of it is that the talent pool is not deep because you don't have a lot of manufacturing here.
Right.
So on the one hand, it's not deep, but on the other hand, the people that are here, when you're one of the few manufacturers that are hiring, you become an employer of choice.
Sure.
And so, so we've been able to make up that match pretty well. Mm-hmm. We brought in an assembly technician, and he was from up north. He retired down here. And, we were able to pick him up, and now he's kind of living the dream. Yeah. He's able to do what he was doing. We pay good wages, and, he's living in Southwest Florida, which is a dream. Yeah. So where you're able to kind of make that match, it works really well for everybody. Sure. You don't have a really, really deep talent pool of super experienced people like you might have, up in Connecticut, where everybody was working for Pratt & Whitney. So, you just kind of manage it on a position by position basis.
Yeah. And I think just, what you're doing right now is, trying to get out there, promote the business, doing a lot of networking. If you're able to show that you're a good company and that you have a great workplace and that you're doing something that's different than a lot of the other businesses, I think that attracts people. And I think that was one of the questions that we always got down here was I guess in the beginning of 2020, we had almost 100 people on the flight docs team. And one of the questions that we always got was around our development team. It was like, where do you guys do your product development, all of our engineering? And nobody could believe that our entire team was actually all sourced and based here in Southwest Florida. Just they couldn't believe that we had the type of talent that we did here. But we were able to kind of build that reputation and become a place where people wanted to work. We also were able to develop people through internships. So we had a great relationship with the local university here, FGCU, Florida Gulf Coast University, and brought people up through that program. So we were able to build an awesome team with local people. And then we also had people that kind of fell in our lap where they were like, hey, my husband we're moving down from Chicago. I have all this great experience. I'm looking for something. This looks like a great fit. And we picked up a lot of people that way.
Yeah. We've had some good luck. Just that surreptitious, just kind of, hey, I'm new to the area. And that's worked pretty well too. And there are some big companies, Parker's here, and there's some larger companies up in Fort Myers that do some aerospace. So there are pockets of some really good experience that you can tap into. Sometimes it's hard to compete with the big companies, and other times, we offer a much different experience than a big company. And, you know, that small company DNA, you know, if you're the right mindset, that small company DNA works really well for people, as opposed to, hey, this is my lane and I shall not stray from, you know, from the yellow lines.
Sure.
We're not like that at all, you know. And
do you think it's harder to find people like that nowadays?
Yeah, I think so.
Just from you know, I'm wondering about that. And, you know, we were always trying to build a team of people who came in, and we didn't do a very good job at like job descriptions. And oftentimes you were, you know, if you were good, we really tried to pull you in every type of direction. And I think the people that embraced that found an extreme fast track to their career, where they came in at, you know, almost like an entry level type position, whether it was a customer service or on a development developer. But when they embrace that, like, hey, this is a small company, there's no like plan on how I become a manager in 5 years or how I become a VP in 7 years or anything like that. When they jumped in and really embraced, like, have a great opportunity here, I could learn a ton, and like, I'm willing to do kind of anything to grow. We had people that came into the company at entry level, and within like 3 years were a VP and like part of our core team. I think that's one of the awesome things about small companies, is that like you're able to come in, jump into it, make a difference. That opportunity is there for you. But I question like how many people enter an organization with that type of mindset.
Well, there's so much ambiguity around that. You know, at a big company, the career progressions are very linear.
Right.
So it's easy. If I do my job really well, you know, then I'll get promoted from a manager to a director to a VP. Right. So it's a very linear progression.
Right.
And it's all based around your functional competency. You know, when people come in, I'm like, okay, well, there's one head of engineering, there's one head of quality, there's one VP of operations, and there's one purchasing person. So, you know, our career progressions are going to be based on growing the company.
Right.
The more we grow the company, the more that these positions will open up, which will allow you to grow.
Right.
And, you know, that's something we all can have an impact on, because we're, you know, a small number of employees.
Sure.
So every employee has a disproportionate impact on the success of the company compared to a huge company.
Right.
And so, you know, that's what I tell people. And some people are really excited about that. They want to be part of that success and a part of that growth, which makes us a good fit. And then others, you know, that's not such a good fit for them. They just want something that's more traditional and linear, and, you know, then they do other things.
Sure. It's not like that's bad, right?
No,
like
it's got to be a good fit. And you know, whether you're owning a small company, running a small company, or being part of a small company, it is not for everyone.
Right.
And, you know, Craig Picken. So he's got a great analogy that I just love. I think about it almost every day, is the tugboat operator versus the barge operator, or versus the cargo container operator. Oh, you know, cargo container, I got a 1,000-foot ship, you know. Well, you know, try making a decision operating a 1,000-foot ship. You know, you can't, and the effects of it won't be seen for hours or days or whatever, and everything's pre-programmed, and you can go downstairs and have a nice dinner and then come back up and nothing has changed. You know, the tugboat operator, you know, he's in there in the middle of the harbor, and getting the crap kicked out of him, and the tide is changing, and the winds are changing, and you know, the boat is getting beat up, and you know, if he's not spot on, then, you know, something bad is going to happen, and it's going to happen right now, and he's making decisions in real time and kind of living out on the edge. And you know, some people are programmed to be a tugboat captain, and you know, others aren't. And I love being in the tugboat. To me, that's very satisfying, because, you know, as you know, every night when you go home, you know, it was you and your team, you know, the decisions that you guys made, and for good or for bad, and that's it.
And they can make it, you could see the immediate impact of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's not this long, drawn out decision-making process and meetings and plans and all this type of stuff, which was one of the things that I loved about what we did was like, you know, and in some cases it came back to bite us in the ass,
of course.
Right? Where, you know, you're just sitting at a table like this and you come up with an idea and we're like, all right, let's just go do it. You know, right? And you start working on whatever that is without putting in, you know, without doing the full business plan and the projections and all that stuff. But in general, I think the real benefit of that for a small company is that you keep things moving. Like the constant action of like, and progression was something that I always loved. And it was like, okay, even if something didn't like hit or didn't have the impact that we thought, it usually brought us in a direction, like it got us closer to our goals, or it got people energized, or it got people feeling more of part of the team with all this.
Well, it keeps the organization learning, right? Even if you quote unquote fail at something, you know, the organization learns something from that, which is tremendously important and powerful.
Sure.
And so, you know, the bias towards action, I think, is really, really important, for better or for worse. And, you know, we just built our building, and oh man, I look around, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of things I would have done differently. But, you know, the reality was we were on a timeline, and, you know, we made the best of it. And, you know, I kept telling my guys, look, you know, if a decision's not going to kill you, just make it and move on. We'll figure, you know, if the decision is made in a way that you're benefiting the customer, you know, we'll then, you know, you can't be wrong.
Right.
And so, you know, being in a small company, you can really have a bias towards action, which we've tried to take advantage of. But also being AS 9100, and, you know, you still have to do it within the context of aerospace discipline.
Right.
And sometimes
you have a 145 repair station.
And we have a 145 repair station. So, you know, all of those things need to be done within the context of some semblance of discipline.
Right.
But the decisions that we can make very quickly. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm the investment committee.
Right.
And so that does give you a bias towards speed, which honestly has been helpful in winning deals. So, you know, we just won a fairly substantial deal. Not a great margins, but we did it for some strategic reasons, and which I'm very happy with, and the program's going very well. But we were able to make that decision almost in real time, just based on some intuition and leveraging all of our collective experience as a management team. You know, okay, how's this gonna be in the long run, and what happens if we don't do this, and, you know, kind of playing out the scenarios. But, you know, it certainly wasn't a 75-page PowerPoint where you're trying to justify it to 3 levels of vice presidents who then have to go to the CEO, who, you know, may have not done great on his golf game that day and said, no, I don't want to do this.
Right.
You know, after all that work goes into it, we look at it, and the customer recognizes that and appreciates that we're that responsive.
Sure. And, you know, knowing this industry, understanding the customers, understanding the products, you can make those decisions based on some, I'll say, like, intangible information. And, like, you know, you don't need everything to line up to a dollar amount, right? You could say, by doing this deal, this is going to be in the best interest of the company because it's going to have these kind of side effects that are going to help us in the long term.
And you ask the right questions, and you know, you can ask 4 or 5 questions and really get to the meat of the problem if you're asking the right questions.
Sure.
And, you know, like you say, having that experience and that intuition, it really does color the decision-making ability, so that, you know, you think, you know, it looks like it's a haphazard, you know, process, but the reality is that it's very much grounded in, you know, years of experience, not really of me, but my entire team.
Sure.
You know, my core management team is very experienced, big companies, small companies. You know, a couple of them have been with the company a long, long time, so they've got the historic basis of the company and of our customers. So you put all of that together, and it's super powerful.
Yeah.
And really, we've tried to leverage that. And now that the transition is behind us, which was really, it was really just a lot of effort, banking and payroll systems and things not working right, blah, blah, blah. Now that that's largely behind us and we can kind of focus on running the business, it's just a lot of fun. And it's fun because we're talking to people that are developing new aircraft. So you see something, whether it's on AOPA Live or wherever out in the industry, and then you get a phone call from an engineer. You're like, hey, I know that program.
Yeah,
wow,
sure.
That's pretty cool that you guys called us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great to be a part of that ecosystem on the supply chain for the entire aviation industry. Personally, that's pretty thrilling for me.
What excites you about aviation right now? Do you see anything going on that, is different now that you think is pretty interesting?
So I was at Oshkosh, and the thing that struck me this year about Oshkosh more than any other time ever in the past was how many young people there were. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a combination of two things. I'm getting old. but the reality is there were a lot of young people. They were energized, they were engaged, they were leaders. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing a lot of, you're part of that group, right? The younger generation is coming into aviation full of ideas, enthusiasm. They love the industry. That was a major takeaway from Oshkosh. And, not for nothing, you look at what's going on with all of these, we had just had a 19-year-old girl. A woman is in the process of flying around the world. Yeah. Luke Zipkin and others, they're flying their Cubs. One of them is flying to every state in, all 48 states. And, another one's flying across the country. So just all of these things that are going on, not only with younger kids, but we're getting women involved in aviation. Mm-hmm. I think the entire color of aviation, literally and figuratively, is changing, and I think that's the best thing that could happen for the industry.
Well, it has to happen.
Yeah.
With all the workforce shortages that we're seeing the impact of now, not just from the pilot side of things, but in maintenance and the whole support structure of aviation. If we don't bring younger people into it, or different people that maybe haven't been interested in the space before, there's going to be problems in really growing this industry, right? Yeah.
And I think what that does, though, is it also makes aviation more accessible.
Sure.
Because, when I was getting my pilot's license or over the last 20 years, it's, oh, well, I'm a pilot, I've got the right stuff, I'm special, or whatever. Like this industry was very insular.
Right. It always seemed closed off.
Right. It's very closed off. And now with Instagram and, with people, there's a support network out there that I think never existed when I was a kid, right? I got my pilot's license at 17. So I was the only one in my high school who was taking pilot flying lessons. Mm-hmm. I didn't have access to any other people my age that were flying. Now, if you're a 17, 18, 19-year-old person and you're interested in aviation, the aspects of social media and YouTube, you can see there's probably 400 YouTube channels and Instagram accounts of people that are like you that are getting involved in aviation and becoming pilots and doing cool things and interesting things. I think that is really, really, really good for the future of the industry, and you're going to see some really amazing innovation coming out of that. So what comes out of that is that this generation is very obviously very connected, mm-hmm. Both electronically and in person. They're also comfortable with new technology. So electric aviation. My son just bought an electric car. He says, I will never own an internal combustion engine vehicle again. And he loves it. Mm-hmm. He absolutely loves it. And so they're comfortable with technologies that we're really just starting to get comfortable with. Right. So electric airplanes, what George Bai's doing, with the E-Flyer is amazing. For flight schools, you look what's going on with Reed Hillview, with leaded gasoline, that's a huge problem. So So for training aircraft, the whole electric revolution, I think, really solves a massive problem for the industry. That next generation is the one that's going to embrace it.
Sure.
Absolutely. That's what's going to happen. So the combination of, I think, electric and other types of propulsion combined with this new demographic and generation that's coming up, I think the industry did a great thing starting 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, saying, hey, we've got to change how we embrace this industry. I was a part of it at the New England Air Museum. I was, I was part of the board for a long time and chairman of the board. A lot of what we did was centered around getting kids interested in aviation, because when I was a young kid, right, my parents would take me to our local airport, go buy ice cream, sit on the tailgate of the pickup truck, watch airplanes land. You can't do that now. There's very few places where you can do that. And if you do, you're going to get arrested for trespassing or worse. And so aviation is not as accessible, and it's not as mysterious to young kids anymore, right? So they don't grow up thinking, oh my, I want to be a pilot or whatever, because it doesn't have that same, it's been spiritized, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so, the industry has really come together and tried to make, through museums and interactive programs and things that AOPA is doing and EAA, tried to make it accessible to kids. And I think that's having an impact. I think if you surveyed, 20-year-old pilots to say, okay, what was your experience that really got you involved? I think it would be different from my generation. Mm-hmm. My generation was, my uncle was a pilot, my father was a pilot, my parents took me to the airport. Today it's going to be a Young Eagles flight. It's going to be a museum. It's going to be something on YouTube that inspires that next generation. And I think, to the industry's credit, we saw that a while ago and made that change happen. Yeah. And I really saw it clear as day at AirVenture this year. Mm-hmm. That was a massive change, over the last 24 months, considering we weren't there last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to definitely see that same thing, and just, all of the content that's out there. And you look at, these guys that are posting videos of, their Citation pilots, or all these guys that have Cirrus Vision jets, and all the content that they're putting out there. And it's making kids and younger people say, like, this is a reality for a lot of people, and this is a direction that we could go, and that's really cool.
Well, it's a modern day Top Gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
It's also kept the FAA busy.
Yeah. For sure.
That's a whole other topic, though.
So yeah, that's cool stuff. So looking back at your company now, and you've kind of gone through this whole process of taking it over and redoing kind of everything. I came and visited your new facility a couple weeks ago. It's a beautiful spot, but you've done all of your systems over, brought in new people. You just redid inventory this weekend. Where are you going from here?
I think in the medium term, we want to leverage what we've just built. Right. Sure. So I want to leverage the 40 years, or 40-year new is what I call it. So we've got 40 years of experience and relationships and products that I don't think were really adequately leveraged in the past. So one of the things that I've done a lot of over the last year and a half is I've done a lot of messaging around not only ease of use with Oxygen Made Easy, but also that we do ourselves as an industry a disservice by following 91-11, which is drilled into our brains as student pilots. That says you don't need oxygen below 12,500 feet. Really not what the regulation says, but that's what we think. So when I talk to pilots about using oxygen, they say, oh, well, I'm not going up to 12,000 feet, so I don't need it. And the data shows that we should be using oxygen at 8,000 feet. And the data is very, very clear. So I've been doing a lot of messaging around that. I've done safety seminars.
Education.
Yeah, I've done safety. And that's a benefit of being a flight instructor, is I can look at this problem from a flight instructor's perspective about how are we teaching our students. And that's part of what I love to do. I did a safety seminar for an EAA chapter virtually Thursday night, and there's maybe 20, 25 people, in the room. I could see them. And it was just great to just be around kind of my people. And but that's the messaging, is that you really should be using these systems at 8,000 feet because, you know it even from traveling on an airliner, which has a cabin altitude of 8,000 feet. When you land on an airliner, you're wiped out.
Yeah.
And it's just from that, from that low oxygen content,
right.
It just accumulates over time. And we tell people, measure your SpO2, right? Pulse oximeters are so ubiquitous now. They're on your iPhone and your watch.
Yeah.
And, we sell pulse oximeters for $30 or $40 that connect to your iPhone. I mean, they're phenomenal. And that was a $300 thing just a couple of years ago. So people need to know what their blood oxygen saturation level is, and use oxygen at lower levels. So we've really been messaging around that. And again, that's part of my network down here that I've built. I've got a great friend. I'll tell you, his name is Bill Schley, and he's like one of the original Mad Men, great advertising guy, branding, and he's in my flying club. And he's like, oh man, I want to be part of this. I want to help you. And we'll go out to dinner and we'll just brainstorm this stuff. Yeah. And I'm so privileged to be around people like that who have taken an interest in my company and are available to help me. It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun, which is really important.
Cool. So it's more around, I think you're seeing, okay, we have these great products. There's changes that we can make to our go to market and to our messaging and our marketing to really and educating people to really help us continue to grow the business.
Yeah, and that's what we want to take advantage of. I'm not going to go out and develop and get into some new market.
Right.
We had looked at that, but the investment required, like I've got so many other things like right within our sweet spot right now that we that I don't think we're fully taking advantage of.
Sure.
So we're reconfiguring products. So one of the new products we came out with last year is called the Pro 2 Plus. And the reason why we came out with that, again, is this concept of oxygen made easy. This is super easy to use. It's a small package. You throw it right in your flight bag, because as a student pilot or as a private pilot, you say, boy, buying one of these large portable oxygen systems looks really complicated, even though it's not. But it looks really complicated. I don't go up to altitude that much. I don't need something like that. So we came up with this very simple to use system that leverages all of our expertise. So it's got a flow indicator. It's a simple toggle switch. It goes to our conserving cannula. It's preset, so there's no adjustment.
Yeah.
You put the cannula on, you flip the toggle switch, you make sure that you've got flow, and you go.
Good.
And it fits right in your flight bag. And so that's been a really popular product because pilots are familiar with the little cans, you hold up to your mouth. But the problem with those is you can't use them continuously. You don't know how much you have left, right? Which is a huge problem. Big problem. And you because you're not using it continuously, you get a little hit, and then your sats drift down again, and then you got to take another hit, and it's not refillable. So ours is it's got all of the benefits that you can see the flow. It's got a conserving cannula. You can flip it on and off so that if you've got to go up and over a cloud, or you have to go up to airspace, or if you're flying at night, or if you just need a little bit of an extra hit, you can use it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's got a gauge on it, so you know exactly how much you have left for safety. So that's been a great product, and all we did is we mixed and matched and configured to solve this very specific problem. And that's the type of product development. Matter of fact, before I came here, I had my one-on-one with my head of engineering. And, I told him, these are the types of problems that I want us to solve. Right. Is how do we take our existing portfolio and make sure that we're really leveraging it to the greatest extent possible and that our products are world-class. So we're going to develop a next generation of our diluter demand mask, which is another product where we have a TSO. So I've got barriers to entry there. And it's much more cost-effective than the incumbent. And so it's a great opportunity for us. It's a great product. I've used it. I love it. And we're going to invest in that and make that product even better.
Cool.
So those are the types of things that I want to do.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for listeners, where can they find you?
www.aerox.com, Aerox.
All right. Cool. How about, and you're on LinkedIn. I know you're
I'm on
active
everywhere.
on there.
Yeah. LinkedIn, Instagram is Helo Glider or Aerox Aviation 02. But LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me.
Cool.
And we have a LinkedIn page for Aerox as well.
Sweet. Anything else you want to mention while we're here?
No, thank you a lot for having me, Greg.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
no problem. No problem. It was great having you on, and we'll do it again one of these days.
Sounds great.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Ed.